This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What's going on, everybody? Busy day as we welcome you into Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network, Sirius XM channel 158. Stormy Bonantoni alongside, as always, the one and only Jonathan Von Tobel. We're live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. We are 1-1 right now in Portugal against DR Congo. We're going to keep tabs on this as we go. Some Major League Baseball, live JVT, and we've got a college baseball elimination game that's about to get underway in a matter of moments.
Yeah, we need something to wager on, so I threw in a little bit of West Virginia plus 115 first 5 innings. So we can get this wrapped up by the time we're done here. But let's have some fun. I miss being out there in Omaha. You know, reading up a little bit here, sounds like the kid that they're sending out for North Carolina, ERA north of 7. You got your better guy coming up here for West Virginia. So we'll see if they can give him a shot to get this done, at least to the first 5 innings. So West Virginia first 5 getting started in 3 minutes. I am in.
UNC, for them, it is win, and in the final, West Virginia would need to win twice. Just before this got locked up on my screen, I saw North Carolina around minus 160. The total also bet up, mind you, from 14 when I was looking at this an hour ago up to 15.5. Tar Heels did beat West Virginia 5-2 on Sunday. It was a much lower scoring affair. North Carolina also only averaging about 3 runs per game in the NCAA tournament. So keep that in mind as well as you go here. But a very high total, and as you just mentioned, the guy who's going for an ERA to be what it is, and he'd be your starter today. Maybe the dog can have a little bit of a shot. We'll also have Oklahoma and Georgia, an elimination game for the dogs a little bit later on that we'll preview as well. But we do, like I mentioned, have a lot that we need to dive into over the course of the next 2 hours. So let's set the table like we always do.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
Got some game time decisions to make today with a full slate JVT of WNBA on deck. We've got 14 games in Major League Baseball in all, and starting to work our way into a little bit more football talk with the NFL betting guide coming up next week. Some quarterback injuries to update the people on from mandatory minicamps.
Yeah, to your point, a lot of big names for a lot of these WNBA teams that we'll discuss that are on the questionable list. So we'll see if some of them can get out there, but really affecting the way that you're going to play some of these games as well. And big picture for some of those NFL topics that we want to discuss. I think it's kind of been the theme of this offseason. Injured quarterbacks, whether or not they're going to be ready by the time the season comes around. Market seems to believe that is the case, and at least for some news, it would sound like maybe some of them are trending in that direction.
Also, can we find some long shots on Long Island as the U.S. Open is less than 24 hours away from Shinnecock Hills? VSiN's own Matt Brown, our resident golf betting analyst, among other things, host of the Long Shots podcast. He's going to join us coming up in the next segment for his best bets.
Yeah, I like this. This goes back to the 2018 tournament. I enjoy the U.S. Open over at Shinnecock. I thought it was awesome. I like watching golfers get pissed off, and that's exactly what they did. And it sounds like this is going to be much of the same here as we get to play there once again. So looking forward to what Matt has to say. You know, a lot of different people, but a lot of the same names that I've been hearing. So I'll be curious to see if Matty B has the same names in his docket.
In addition to the course difficulty, obviously weather is going to play a big role in this thing as well, particularly for the opening round tomorrow. So we will update all of that, and later on in the show, you and I will give some of our thoughts on the field as well, and a couple top 20s and top 10s I'm contemplating adding into the portfolio. But we're going to kick things off with the World Cup. Who run the World Cup? Stars, apparently, because Lionel Messi yesterday, who turns 39 next week, has a hattie to open the tournament. He was once the youngest and is now the oldest player for Argentina ever to score in the World Cup. 16 career goals and counting, now the most ever, tied for the most ever in the tournament's history. And I know one of the things that we talked about yesterday, at least I said, questioning a guy at his age. Yes, he's been doing so well tearing it up in MLS, but on the World Cup stage, you know, you're 4 years removed from as a team winning it. What is it going to look like against this level of competition? And he showed me right away, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see when competition steps up a little bit here as opposed to playing Algeria, but still, Messi looked absolutely fantastic. One of the goals, too, just not to take away from it, kind of being in the right place at the right time, getting in off of a rebound and just putting it back into the net. It was absolutely tremendous performance for him, though, and also had an absolute screamer that gets in there, too. So a good performance, I think, for him. And you mentioned it, like the theme of yesterday, the big favorites, but the stars. I mean, you get Haaland doing what he did in that matchup against Iraq, Mbappe getting in there with his own brace against, why am I blanking on, Senegal? Like, that was a tremendous performance all the way around. So if you're a TV exec, you had to be thrilled with what you watched yesterday because you knew all three of your big guys are going to be everybody on the stage at once and saying, all right, let's see what we can get if we can deliver it a day after a bunch of draws.
Yeah.
We get dominating victories. We get multiple goals from all of the stars. And it's a big one for the Golden Boot as well, with all three of these guys acting and getting multiple goals.
Well, especially for the two of us, considering you have Erling Haaland and I have Kylian Mbappe, both for Golden Boot. So that was a fun start for the two of us to get 2 goals on the board. You are even just showing me, too, speaking of right place at the right time for a goal, Erling Haaland's second goal, unbelievable.
I mean, the Iraqi defender on the back line, like he passes it back to his goaltender, and it's the laziest pass you've ever seen. Haaland's standing right next to him, and he just taps it back to the goalkeeper. Haaland's like, okay, and just sprints up and puts it in the back of the net. That was a dominant performance. In Norway, too, I mean, you look at what they did in that game, and again, it's one against an opponent that you were heavily favored against, but still, from the jump. France kind of played with their food initially in that first half. Then everything opened up in the second half for them. From the get, Norway was in, and they were on it, and they were all over Iraq, and that was a really big deal. They look like every bit of the dark horse that I think a lot of people expect them to be.
And for the two of us, betting-wise, obviously very fortunate the second half of that game for France went the way that it did. We were getting a lot of tweets, which, by the way, please do tweet at us if you want to chime in. You want to discuss some of your bets, at MeJVT, at Storm Bonatoni. You can also shoot us an email, moneymoves@vsin.com. But I had both teams to score in that game, and I told you about my non-researched fun play that I threw in on France -1.
Yeah.
Needed all of those goals ultimately to get that home yesterday. You had the over 2.5 for the game, so we end up getting all of that. The Norway bets come through for us too, so a good day all around. I was even saying too, for somebody who covers the NHL and struggled as much as I did for the Stanley Cup final, to come out the gate and be doing as well as I am in the World Cup, a sport I know nothing about. I don't know what's happening right now.
That's why you don't talk about these things. First rule.
Now it's all going downhill.
Yeah, first rule of Fight Club is you don't mention Fight Club. Why do you think I always tell you, just every time you try to pay a compliment, every time you just, yeah.
Well,
Stop.
when you commiserate the losses as hard as you do, I feel like it's okay to celebrate the wins every once in a while.
No, it's not.
Not today. But go ahead.
No, I was just going to point out, because with this Golden Boot, we should note that your boy, Kylian Mbappe, you do have it, right? That was your selection. He is the favorite at DraftKings at plus 225. He is not the favorite at FanDuel. Messi is the favorite at FanDuel at plus 260. Messi 3-1 at DraftKings, and Mbappe's 3-1 at FanDuel. So if you want to get in on Messi, for example, with the 3 goals that he scored, you can get 3-1, which is better than the plus 260 that's out there. And it's worth mentioning, too, that at least in group stage right now, the path for Messi looks pretty solid in terms of being able to rack up some goals potentially before you get to the knockout round. He's got Austria and Jordan. Jordan just lost, of course, yesterday, too, to Austria, who got their first World Cup win in 36 years. So those are the 2 opponents that Messi has left in front of him. Meanwhile, Mbappe, you get Iraq, which is going to be an opportunity for him, but you end with Norway, and that is going to be a battle of heavyweights. And, of course, Holland, the same thing. Senegal coming up, but Senegal's a pretty poor defensive team, as we mentioned and found out yesterday. But that France-Norway matchup is going to be a heavyweight battle that we've talked about this before. I think we brought this up with Mike Palm. Maybe goal scoring, not a very big opportunity in these big matchups, only because the weather, how hot it is, the intensity that these teams are going to play with. So maybe Haaland and Mbappe take a little bit of a step back in that final matchup against one another. But still, Messi seems like he's on a really good pour, not only because he's got 3 now, but with Austria and Jordan, those are really good opportunities for him.
And the path is worth noting, too. If you're somebody who's diving into this market, your goal is to pick a player on a team who you anticipate going pretty far in this thing as well. So including out of the group stage, do you think that they're a team that's going to make it deep, go to a semifinal, potentially make it to the final? That's just going to help your cause as you go. Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously in action right now for Portugal. He's a 20-1 shot on DraftKings, 30-1 on FanDuel. But Harry Kane, who was your second shot on the board initially pre-tournament, he's going to get in action for the first time later on today as well with England. He's still available at 8-9-1 where things sit.
Yeah, I wonder, we'll have to ask our guy Alex Bloas about this one, because Kane, while in talking with Alex about this and the fact that Kane's kind of not saved himself, but playing a little bit lower intensity in fewer games when he's now out in Germany with league play, but still in potentially form to come out here and compete for the Golden Boot. But with the way that England plays, a little bit more possession-oriented, lower-scoring, defensive-minded, is he going to be a legitimate threat to win the Golden Boot, especially when you get some of these guys that are off to the starts that they are?
I do have a bet in that England game a little bit later on today facing Croatia. Got a little bit of a cheaper price here at Circa than I was seeing elsewhere in the market on England. And so we'll talk about that at length a little bit later.
Bet? Huh? What'd you bet?
I just said England.
Oh, there's just England to win outright?
England flat out, minus 136. Right. But we will have Anthony DeBundo of The Ringer doing a great job as an all-sport, but particularly soccer analyst. He's going to join us later on this hour. We'll get his thoughts on all three games, Ghana and Panama, as well as Uzbekistan and Colombia going head-to-head later on today. Did you have any bets today in soccer?
Under 2.5 in the England game, which seems like a very square place. So
what I was looking at, too, and I heard Jensen Lewis talking about this morning, was maybe doing an alt-under paired with England to win, or even some of this wasn't something Jensen's saying, but something else I was looking at is the exact scores. If you want to do like a 2-0 England win, you can get around 8-1 for that type of a thing.
They had a really good guess at 4:30 today.
Oh yeah, you were on. I forgot. How was the spot today?
It's fantastic.
Did you talk trash about me? I feel like usually you find a way to like sneak in something.
I only do that if I'm asked, and I was not asked about you today. Not everything's about you, Stormy.
Okay. Well, that's your gripe, though, is that usually someone does bring me up, and that's why you get upset.
You're so used to it, but not everything's about you.
In terms of the World Cup odds at large right now, France following the win yesterday, that much shorter now as your short shot to win it all at 4-1. Spain following the 0-0 draw against Cape Verde, still your second shot on the board around plus 550. England 7-1, Portugal plus 750, and then we get to the double digits and beyond. Argentina 10-1. They, of course, won the most recent World Cup, but we have not had a repeat champ JVT since Brazil in the 60s. It's been a minute.
All right, quick update. Leadoff man on for North Carolina. Not the best way to start here for West Virginia, but still a 1-1 count, 7 pitches in. So we still have, I'm going to say, plenty of time for this first 5 bet.
The live total, 15.5, juice minus 120 to the over. So they are expecting some runs today. We got to step aside. Like we said, though, when we come back, excited to have Matt Brown join the program, dive into all things U.S. Open. Stick around. You won't want to miss it. He's got best bets all over the place for this one.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, we are back at it here on Money Moves. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. And boy, is it a fun day. We got the College World Series going on right now. By the way, North Carolina up 1-0 over West Virginia. Of course, the World Cup still 1-1 with Portugal and DR Congo. Remember, though, as the sports calendar never stops, the Sharp Plays is covering it all. They've been winning for 15 straight years. All of it documented. Logs posted publicly at sharpplays.com. That kind of transparency we know rare in the industry. But when the Sharp Plays move, the sportsbooks take notice. Advanced AI, trusted insider intel, they're finding value before the numbers shift. You can start winning with them today at sharpplays.com. And with that, if you're looking for something to get some action on, we are less than 24 hours away from the best golfers in the world teeing it up for the U.S. Open, one of the oldest golf clubs in the country, Shinnecock Hills, out there in the town of Southampton on Long Island. Playing host for the 6th time, Matt Brown, VSiN Zone, joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line to get into it. Host, of course, all over the network, but also host of the premier golf betting podcast, Long Shots, at Matt Brown M2 if you want to follow him on X. And the big story so far, Matt, has been this weather for tomorrow. So can we start there? What should we expect in terms of the wind?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the entire story really right now. And you know, that's unfortunately going to have to play heavily into your handicap and probably heavily into how you bet this thing live if you decide to go in and bet this thing live. I was pretty confident that I was going to go into this tournament and just fire a single bullet on Scotty Scheffler. I think that everything kind of lines up here. This air quote slump that he's been in, you know, sign me up any day if that's a slump. You know, I'm all for that. But I just couldn't get there because of the weather. I mean, the great equalizer that we talk about all the time is like every golfer on the PGA Tour is the best golfer you've ever seen in your whole life. If they showed up at your club, you'd be like, I can't even believe this guy's a real human. They would destroy your club. But the golf courses change everything. Well, the equalizer amongst the elite golfers is the wind, and it's the stuff that we can't control as bettors, right? And so, I kind of said this on, the various stuff that we've done here on the network this week is just, be prepared to maybe be bummed out, because your guy, if he draws the bad end of this, and if this forecast holds and it really does stay like it is, I mean, the deal about the gusts is you don't know when the gusts are going to come, right? And you don't know how long they're going to be there and how long they're going. So your guy might be out on hole 11, and then for 45 straight minutes, the wind is blowing at 35 to 45 miles an hour. And if that's the case, then you're just unfortunately, up a creek there with that one. And so, just be prepared to be a little bummed out with all of this, but hopefully, which is why it's changed my strategy. I'm going a little bit more scattershot than I thought I was going to here. I thought it was going to be a one bullet type week, and instead I ended up on 5 different guys.
All right, so with that, and it sounds like maybe the dreaded V word variance might strike here given the wind and all the other outside factors. What are you looking at? What are you weighing the most with your model in terms of statistics? What kind of golfer do we want?
So I really went in a lot more with accuracy this week than distance. I'm looking at the guys that really can control their shots off the tee. think I'm in a bucket by myself out here. I don't think a lot of people wade off the tee as much, but I kind of, if we're going to be dealing with these conditions, the roughs are brutal as it is. I want my guys hitting from the short grass as much as humanly possible. I know there are going to be people who argue this, and I've done it on occasion as well, that longer is further if everyone's going to be missing the fairway. But these are actually fairly generous fairways. They're pretty wide. It's just, again, the wind is going to blow it a ton. Well, you just need to be super, super accurate, and then you can adjust for what's going out there. So I did a decent amount of accuracy off the tee type stuff with that. And then, you know, the typical stuff that we always talk about, approach each and every week, but really around the green and 3-putt avoidance and lag putting for me was a much bigger emphasis than in any normal week, because these iron shots, some guys can flight them down, some guys can really control them, and some guys, it's, you know, it's the wind's going to take control, it's going to blow it off the green. And if that's the case, you're going to have to get up and down, or these are big greens, and even if you landed on there, you're going to have a 60-foot putt. You know, you're going to have a 65-foot putt. I need the guys that can at least snuggle it up there and go in and tap in for par and move on with their day. So that's really the stuff that was the heavier emphasis for me this week than it would be on a typical week.
VSiN host, a Ready, Set, Bet in the Long Shots podcast, Matt Brown, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line, talking all things U.S. Open. So, as you mentioned, you've scattered your investment amongst a few different golfers. Who do you like the most, I guess, in terms of your catalog already?
Yeah, I did this just for you, Stormy. So I started out the betting card with Xander Schauffele this
Let's
week.
go.
I know you and Xander. I know you got a thing for Xander. I honestly, when it came down to it, when I decided I was going to go off of Scotty, I was looking for guys that are proven on these hard courses, that are guys that have the pedigree to go out and win a major, who have kind of the whole bag. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting here, that I, no credit to myself here, this is all data golf, who went in, and Xander Schauffele has the longest streak of top 15 finishes in a single major in history. It's tied right now at 9 in a row, and his is at the U.S. Open. He's been inside the top 15 in 9 U.S. Opens in a row. The next 6 golfers after that, as far as like this, streaks inside of top 15, are all at the Masters, because you play the same course every single year. Like, you get good at the course, you know the course, and the course just kind of fits your eye. It is shocking what Xander's doing, because this is a rotational tournament, as we said. So he just steps up to the plate in these really tough setups and is able to kind of grind it out. And, listen, maybe he ends up on the right side of variance with the wind. And if that's the case, I think he's a dude that could definitely win it. Now, everything, transparency here, he was listed at 18-1. I got one of the great little boosts that we get, go in, boosted it up to 22.5-1. I highly recommend, if any of you are out there in any of these markets that do offer these things on occasion, to go in and check your account and see if they're there, because I mentioned it to Kelly, who's on the podcast with me. He went in, look, he had one as well. So just take advantage of these boosts while you can. I mean, you can get your odds much, much better. 25% boost, and they're allowing you to do it on just about anybody.
All right, let's go with some of the other outrights that you have here. I've heard a lot about Cameron Young. Are you on Cameron Young?
Yeah, I'm on Young, and it was kind of a toss-up here. So I could only play somebody in this low 20s. I can only play one of these dudes in order to really round out the card properly. And so him and Matt Fitzpatrick was a real coin toss. They were basically identical in my models. I did 7 different versions. You go in and you basically get the consensus of the 7 different models, and they come out like 0.2 apart. So, I mean, they're the same player according to my model, like as far as like win equity in all of this. And I just went with the dude that's a little bit longer. And I know I said I'm looking more for accuracy, but the thing with Cam Young is he's long and accurate. And so I decided to go with the dude who's a little bit longer, that along with the accuracy here. But if you're looking for a guy that can go out there, and I have no idea how many times played this or not. He is from New York. He is from the area. I'm assuming he's gotten out there and played this course several times over the course of his life. So I'm assuming there's some familiarity there as well, at least with the climate and the conditions. He's at least going to be somewhat familiar with as well. So ended up on Cam Young. Russell Henley, another guy I didn't think I was going to end up on, about 40-1 out there in the market. He's just super, super accurate, not long at all, but he is a guy that if he can just play from the short grass, he's a grinder. And I'm kind of thinking where we're looking at the score right now, by the way, 278.5 is that, which if you do that in your mind, like, 1 over, 2 over, I mean, 1 under, 2 under is kind of what they're looking at as far as the final score in this tournament. Like, so par's going to be a good score. Go out there, par, be boring. Russell Henley's pretty boring. And so I was kind of like, who's the most boring golfer that I could put on my card and be okay with, and ended up on Russell Henley.
I know there are a couple more outrights you have. If you want to hear them all, make sure you check out the Long Shots podcast. Go to vsin.com. If you're a subscriber, you get full access to the picks page. But I do want to go this last couple minutes to the placement markets for you, top 10s, top 20s. Anybody you would recommend there?
Yeah, I have a couple of top 20s in the account. Siwoo Kim is a guy, I just don't know about the win equity with Siwoo. Like, Siwoo always is there and just never gets to the mountaintop. And so I'm not really going to go with him from an outright perspective, but the model loved him. I mean, like an absolute model darling. This was a guy that was modeling out in some of the versions that I ran higher than Cam Young, higher than Matt Fitzpatrick, all these guys that I really, really liked this week. I think they have much higher win equity than Siwoo Kim does. And so I ended up just on a top 20 with him there. And then Tyrrell Hatton, this kind of a leap of faith type deal. He's over on Live. I don't have a ton of stuff to go from. There are a couple of sites out there that do get strokes gain data from the people over at Live. And so I kind of looked at all of that. He is coming off of a win. And if you look, this is a guy that's played pretty well in a bunch of hard courses, in a bunch of hard conditions, and a bunch of windy conditions. And so, again, kind of a leap of faith here. I'm not going for an outright with Hatton, but I am thinking that maybe he can finish inside the top 20.
You do a great job handicapping the golf. How's your golf handicap right now? You're certainly pretty bronze. It looks like you've been getting out there.
Yeah, I'm about a 12.5 right now. I'm really trying to get to single digits, but I mean, it's tough. It's a grind, man. You get going from 20 to 15 is one thing, and then 15 to 13 is another thing. The 13 to 10, those single digit handicaps. If you're out there and you're a single digit, good on you. Good on you.
And hey, you're playing a lot in Vegas too. We get a lot of wind here, not to be mistaken as well. Matt, you're awesome. Thank you so much for the time, buddy. We appreciate it.
Good luck to y'all.
See ya.
Make sure you check out Ready, Set, Bet every weekend here on VSiN. And like we said, the Long Shots podcast out now. Get all of the plays from him, Kelly Bidlin, Wes Reynolds. They're crushing it. You can also follow Matt on X at MattBrownM2. We got to step aside. More Money Moves coming up after this.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Rolling along here on Money Moves, Story Bonantoni, Jonathan Von Tobel with you, keeping tabs on all the action out there in Omaha and across the globe with the World Cup. But right now, North Carolina up 2-0 on West Virginia. Runners on first and third with one out right now for the Mountaineers, trying to play catch up here. And I know that you certainly hope that something magical will happen here for WVU.
Yeah, not the best start for West Virginia, considering you give up the leadoff guy. You allow him to steal second, and then when he goes to steal third, the ball is overthrown, and he gets to get home. Like, there was just a lot going on. Either way, though, 2-0 lead. But runners on the corners, as you mentioned, with a full count and one out. So you are in a position to, at the very least, get something on the board. Strikeout for Boaz here. So you're going to have two outs with runners on the corners. Don't waste an opportunity, please.
Tied at 1 still here in the Portugal match as well.
We got some fisticuffs. Come on, let's go. Fight each other. Portugal and
Fisticuffs in soccer really mean like pointed
DRC,
words,
yeah.
though, and getting close to each other.
Don't do that. Don't do that. See, that's your pig-headed Americanness right there shining through.
The flopping
a-
in this sport is unlike anything else.
For a sensitive hockey fan.
However, this instance actually looks like there was really something there.
I don't know. I don't think you should
Oh
be
no,
talking.
he touched his jersey.
You're a thin-skinned hockey fan.
He touched his kit.
Stormy's
Can't have
mad.
that.
Stormy got mad at me because you weren't too happy about my comments about the TV ratings for the National Hockey League.
We're not going to get into that right now. We're busy. Speaking of the NHL.
Was it 10 times as many people watched
Oh my
the NBA Finals?
gosh.
Nah.
Remember how you said that, like, we're the thin-skinned ones? We're actually
Remember?
celebrating something
Remember?
positive, and then you're ripping on it, which is why
'Cause it's
people
just so
have
funny.
the issues
'Cause
that
it's
they
just so funny.
have.
Yeah.
Can't have any good things. Because you mentioned the NHL, though, we'll talk about this more a little bit later, but we do have a new head coach here in Vegas. John Tortorella obviously was not held over. Ryan Craig coming up from the AHL affiliate, the Henderson Silver Knights. He
Yep.
will be the next head coach here in Vegas. And out there for the Toronto Maple Leafs, former LA Kings head coach Jim Hiller. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, as I said. One last thing quickly to follow up our U.S. Open conversation, because we'll do a full in-depth preview coming up in hour 2 with our thoughts on the U.S. Open. But because Matt made the comment about Xander Schauffele, like saying, I've got a thing for Xander, what he meant was he's like, not only a San Diego State alum, and we have our ties there, but he's kind of my white whale type of a guy.
Sure.
I bet him all the time, and I'm still waiting to bet him when he actually wins something. It's one of those things. Would love for it to be this week. The history, as Matt was laying out on the U.S. Open, has been awesome, and he is somebody that I'm going to tie into top 10s and top 20s this week, but I'm debating whether or not I want to pull the trigger on the outright. That said, let's get to some NFL stuff, because mandatory mini camps are underway across the sports landscape right now, and we got some quarterback updates for you, including in Denver. Broncos quarterback Bo Nix, as we know, had his postseason cut short in the divisional round with that fractured ankle. Made his first appearance at practices yesterday. Looked good throwing in individual drills. Still not doing the full complement, but he said he feels like he could be full go right now. It's just the team's medical staff and coaches holding back the reins.
Yeah, I think he's one of the many guys that you're expecting to potentially be ready. And look, I don't want to say it's the less serious of all these injuries, but we're talking about a lot of ligament damage out there for some of these quarterbacks, right? Patrick Mahomes and, of course, Daniel Jones, among the others. So one would expect a hard contact injury like this, that maybe he's going to be ready to go, would seem to be the case. And for a lot of them, too. I mean, this is a commonality of quarterbacks nowadays in the NFL, but still, mobility is a common theme among these guys. You've got to be able to move. You've got to be able to extend plays, as you usually do. Bo Nix, it's a big part of his game as well. So not only will he be ready, but will he be able to be his full self by the time we get back?
Well, he certainly thinks so post-op. Listen to what he had to say on the podium yesterday.
Well, my concern is they say it's, back healthy as good as new, and I hadn't really been like that in a couple of years. So my concern is maybe move around a little bit better.
So he thinks he might be more mobile post-op. He had the initial ankle surgery in January. The follow-up procedure he had in April that kind of made the rounds, he addressed that as well, just saying it was to alleviate some pain from bone spurs. He's someone who has had several ankle injuries throughout the course of his career. So the fact, though, that his doctors are saying everything looks good as new and he's in good position is significant. New play caller out there in Denver as well, Davis Webb taking over for Sean Payton. How does that affect the way that they want to utilize him? How does that affect the run game? Also, Jalen Waddle and him being brought into this offense as a weapon trying to stretch the field. That's something Bo Nix discussed yesterday as well.
Well, there's an element of, explosiveness that I think as an offense we've lacked for a couple of years. We've had plenty of explosive plays, plenty of, points, all that kind of stuff. We've, made great strides, but there's a level of explosiveness that a guy like that adds. So you could be, first and 10 starting to drive and, go one and done because he takes it 75, 80 yards. So that's the kind of weapon that we added, and that's, I think, what we've all been out here watching and sort of really enjoying watching, just see him get out here, move and run around, and you just can't replace speed.
So he's talking about Jalen Waddle there, obviously, and the difference maker he thinks he could be as an element within their offense. What do you think, and what are your expectations for Denver offensively coming up?
I mean, you would think and hope that maybe this team is going to find that element a little bit more of explosiveness. I do think some of that does have to do with Nix and whether or not he is going to be a little bit better. If you look at some of the comparisons for him, or just some of the numbers for him, I should say, completed air yards per completion last season, he was just floating around 4.5. I think it was just above that at 4.7. For a comparison's sake, you look at a guy like Matthew Stafford that was at 7.4. Yes, Stafford won MVP, but still it shows that there's the ability there for Stafford to stretch the field a little bit more and add some of that explosiveness himself. You could generate explosive plays by getting guys out in space, too. Shout out to Gil Alexander-Kelly for that terminology. But I do think that either way, it's going to do a lot with, I think, the way Nix plays. I mean, you made fun of me a lot, and I had the criticisms of him as a quarterback throughout the season, and some of it was hyperbolic, but some of it wasn't. And I think some of the failings of Denver at times, especially when it came to them needing him to be good in these tight games because their defense was grabbing them by the scruff of their neck and dragging them along, it is because the offense failed at times, and a lot of that fell on his shoulders. So I think Waddle's great. I think he's a good addition. I kind of trust Sean Payton to scheme up something, but I don't think there's any question that Nix overall does have to find a little bit more consistency in his game for them to achieve some of the things that a lot of people think they can.
This past season, finished 8th in the league in passing yards, 3,931. His prop this year set just around 3,500 yards. The touchdowns right on the number where he was last year, 25 a year ago, 24.5 your prop this year. Denver, middling expectations, I think would be fair to say. Like, what are they going to do in the division, knowing you've got the Chiefs and Chargers right there? Raiders also a hypothetically improving team, right? They are 7th on the board for the AFC, 11-1, which surprised me at least a little bit.
Where do you think they should be? Do you think they should be higher or lower?
I thought their expectations and the way they would be played would be that they would be shorter odds than that.
Yeah, I'm curious. Look, so let's invoke one more time, too. I know they won, they made a little bit of a run in the AFC playoffs, but remember, we talked about that a lot on our Live Bet Sunday shows. That Denver defense did show all of a sudden some regression in the last 6 weeks or so of the season when they came out of that bye week. And so you do wonder what the real element of Denver is truly going to be. They end up finishing last season 7th in overall expected points added per play by opponents. They were 1st in success rate. But you do wonder if there is an element of truth between the two versions of Denver we saw in those stretches of the regular season defensively. And then you add in the fact that, hey, look, what if Bo Nix isn't going to find some consistency as a passer? I don't think that means they fall to like 3 wins.
Sure.
But I think that does mean you're much closer to a middling 500-ish team as opposed to a team that was competing for a 1 seed last year like they were.
Win total set at 9.5 here. And remember, even though obviously we're still months away from kickoff of the NFL season, we are going to be the first to market for our NFL betting guide here at VSiN. Lots of content that's going to be coming out over the next week and a half or so. All of your favorite VSiN show hosts and expert NFL analysts going to have their favorite plays in the betting guide. I know you specifically have a division that you've broken down, which we'll talk about in the coming days as well. But so much good stuff is going to be coming in this betting guide, and you don't get it a la carte this year. You have to be a VSiN Pro subscriber to get full access to it. VSiN.com/subscribe. Check out the early bird special, just $175 for all of it, access through the Super Bowl.
I am looking forward to reading the rest of my colleagues' write-ups. I saw a little bit of what Adam had to write about with the Cleveland Browns because he sent an example of it, so I have an idea of what he thinks about his team. But the rest of these are going to be pretty fun because we had a little bit of a different format for the way that we wrote up these previews. And I always like seeing what some of our folks have this early on. I mean, we're talking about June and some of the futures that are going to be out there that are given out by some folks. Just a different way to look at things. You know, sometimes you get little bits of information that you didn't really think about, not necessarily want to tail it, but just little bits and bobbles that maybe you didn't either see, pieces of news, all sorts of stuff. I think that's why guides like this are pretty valuable.
And another really cool thing that Adam and the whole crew does here is that while this is the first betting guide that comes out, there's also going to be the refresh after training camps and after we find out more about injuries and how teams have looked in the preseason, like all of that stuff.
Starting position battles,
exactly.
Right?
Yep. So all of that, like in addition to the best bets that you have now, there's going to be more bets that are going to come out once we're through that stretch of things. So again, VSiN.com/subscribe. Speaking of the aforementioned injuries, though, Michael Penix Jr., another one who, although he's not full go in the mandatory minicamp practices, he has been out there and is expected to be full go by training camp. So we'll see if that competition ends up actually being a competition between he and Tua Tagovailoa or not.
It won't be because Tua's going to win that day.
You're sold.
I mentioned that to Dave Ross today. Dave apparently is as high on the Falcons as I am, with Tua leading the way.
Okay, NFC South, very interesting. It's been a division of bottom feeders for a while. We talked about it yesterday. Could the winner be 8-9 again? Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
12 wins.
We got to step aside. More World Cup action, though, when we return. Excited to have the Ringers' Anthony Dabbundo join us, get his thoughts and best bets on the 3 games still to come today.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Boy, has the World Cup action been fun. It has delivered day after day as we welcome you back here to Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you after the day of draws on Monday and the craziness with the 0-0 Spain final. We had all the favorites and star power yesterday. What will we get today? Already one interesting one in action with Portugal still tied at 1 for their first match of the tournament. To talk it all over, excited to have Anthony Dabbundo join us here on the Progressive Guest Line, doing great work covering the tournament, among like so many other things as well at the Ringer. But specifically, your soccer coverage, Anthony, has been awesome. You can follow him on X at Anthony Dabbundo as well. What have you seen from Portugal so far, especially as such a big favorite, the way that they've struggled early?
Yeah, I think a lot of people got very excited about the Portuguese midfield coming into the tournament, and for good reason. I mean, you could make a case they're the best midfield at this tournament with Bruno Fernandes, Vitinha, and João Neves. Neves scoring the goal. Their ability to do both defending and creating chances is impressive. But I think people also seeing Portugal come in as a tournament, favorite, potential dark horse, one of the 5-6 teams. I think people vastly overrated the quality of their attackers. I've called it the Ronaldo problem. They have a Ronaldo problem, which is that they keep playing Ronaldo a ton of minutes because he is their star, their legend, their hero. But at this point in his career, he really isn't able to cover ground. He's not able to make runs in behind like he used to. He's very much a sit in the box and poach chances striker. And they're building this attack around wingers who really aren't in great form either. You look at players like Conceição and Neto, who are the main guys on the wings, and they have not been very productive in this game either. So it's been a lot of stale possession, a lot of Portugal kind of getting stuck running into walls and not really having anybody who can beat a man one-on-one or get in behind or even serve Ronaldo. When Ronaldo's had his chances, he hasn't taken them. And now it's 1-1, and we're almost 80 minutes into this game here. Portugal has 5 shots. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, right now, as you mentioned here, we're entering the 84th minute as it stands, the 1-1 draw so far. To go back really quick, because I know we have some games, but a lot of the folks that I have talked to also brought up Norway, and yesterday Holland and Norway did very, very well against Iraq. Is this a team offensively that could be a big challenge? They have France that they have to play at the end of their group stage, but could this be the true dark horse outside of Portugal?
Norway was a popular dark horse. I was not particularly impressed with their defense. I thought they struggled considerably against an Iraq team that might be one of the worst attacking teams in this field. We will get a test of Norway, right? They're going to play Senegal in their next match at MetLife. They're going to end the group with France. So certainly nobody doubted that Odegaard, Haaland, Ostergaard, and Nusa could be a really good attacking group and that they could score goals. I think the big question with Norway, how well can they prevent goals as they get later in the tournament and play better teams? That's probably what determines their ceiling because Holland gives them a floor of they're going to make the round of 32, maybe round of 16. But can they push on further? That comes down to the defense.
Soccer and betting analyst at the Ringer, Anthony Dabbundo, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Let's look to the 3 remaining matches coming up today. One of the at least perceived contenders for the World Cup this year as well. England in action against Croatia, minus 150 to win right now. The draw plus 275, Croatia plus 450. How do you see that one playing out?
Yeah, I think that, one thing, if you were to be critical of England in the past, 6-7 years of international football, while they've been so good defensively, the criticism you could make of England is that they let teams with good structure and good midfields and good passers kind of just do their thing a little bit too much. And that's a risky run against a Croatian team that doesn't have a ton of explosiveness like it's had in the past. They are an aging team with a couple of younger players starting to break through, but they're still relying on some of their older guys. They want to slow the tempo down. They want to keep possession. They want to play their stuff. And England is pretty content a lot of the time to defend well, protect their midfield, and not get into this crazy back and forth game. So you may end up getting a game where England is the favorite, right? It's on them to force the issue, to create the chances, to separate in this match, but they're not really well built to do that in this kind of matchup. And you end up getting a stalemate type match where neither team is particularly able to create chances because England can't strangle control and Croatia is just holding a lot of stale possession. And so I think that's the risky run. Now, with that being said, England has made it clear and in their personnel that they are going to be a very dangerous set piece team in this tournament. One early set piece goal changes everything, right? Changes a lot. So I do think that set pieces are going to be the main way that England tries to win this. They're going to rely on their defense, which was the best in Europe in qualifying. I know there's personnel questions about their defense, but structurally it's a very sound team. So I did take under 2.5 here. I know the over's actually taken some money in the last 20 minutes that I looked, but you know, England tends to start slow at these tournaments, and I don't think that's going to change here.
And Anthony, by extension, we were talking about the updated standings because, of course, after last night, all the big names with their braces or Messi with the hat trick. Do you think Harry Kane at 8 or 9 to 1 would be live for this Golden Boot with a bunch of the stars already getting off to pretty good starts in their first matches?
To be honest, I don't love betting Kane at that number. It's been about as bad of a start for Harry Kane, Golden Boot, as you could imagine. I mean, Haaland gets 2, Messi gets 3, Mbappe gets 2. All of them are in more explosive teams who, quite frankly, will score more goals. Maybe not Argentina, but quite frankly, will score more goals than England will at this tournament. So you're already starting at a deficit. You're not getting that good of a number. I would not bet Kane Golden Boot at the current price, even though he hasn't played yet, because this group, yes, like Panama, Ghana, are not particularly challenging teams. Relatively, but England, again, is just not the kind of team that we typically see run it up in these kind of matches. In fact, it's quite rare, especially once you get to the knockouts. So I would not bet Kane at that number. And in fact, I think that, you know, Mbappe is probably should be the rightful favorite at this point.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to follow up on. Is this a type of a market that you'll look for live opportunities as you go, or even now looking at some of those double-digit people, or because the favorites already got out to the starts that they're on, like, okay, seems like they're off and running?
Yeah, this is the kind of market. I bet nobody Golden Boot pre-tournament, and I didn't really see any value in it. And I said to myself, okay, like if one of the favorites has a slow start, or if something unusual happens, maybe we'll hop in. And then, you know, with the 3 favorites taking control like that, Kai Havertz is an interesting name. He also scored 2 goals. His number has also come down, of course, but Germany is a team that we expect to score a lot. Now, Germany has a potential matchup with France coming in the round of 16. They're not going to get to play Curacao every match like they did in the opener, but, you know, Havertz is maybe interesting. But ultimately, when you have the best players in the world on the best teams start like this, it does kind of squeeze out everybody else in the market.
Havertz available 16 to 1 over at FanDuel. All right, let's go to Ghana and Panama today. Ghana, the slight favorite on the 3-way line at about plus 125. Totals 2.5 shaded to the under at minus 160. What's your expectations for this match?
Yeah, a lot of market support for Panama, which I agree with. Ghana actually opened odds on here. They were around minus 105 when the markets first opened once the draw came out. And as limits have gone up and you're able to bet more money on some of these games, the market has just steamed straight toward Panama. I do not have a gap at all, really, between these two teams. Now, there has been an underrating of the African teams generally in the market through the first week of the tournament. We've seen Morocco outperform expectations. We've seen Cape Verde, Egypt beat the spread. A lot of these African teams played well. I mean, Senegal didn't cover, but they were in it with France for most of that match, right? So the African teams, and there was a theory behind this. Now, the African teams played the African Cup of Nations in January. So all these international teams got essentially a trial run, what the World Cup squad might look like, what the roster is going to look like. And funny enough, the one team that looked the worst of the African teams, Tunisia, was the one that had the most turnover from AFCON in January to now. Ghana did not play because they did not qualify for AFCON. So as good as Ghana has historically been, a lot of Americans know Ghana because they played the U.S. in 06, 2010, 2014. This Ghana team is vastly different, and this Ghana team has been very roller coastery to the point where, yes, they qualified, but then they didn't even make the qualifying for their own international tournament on their own continent, which almost every African country that's worth anything makes. So it's been very up and down for Ghana. As a result, I think Panama is pretty comparable to them. You can bet draw no bet plus 128. I do think the Panamanians are live. Interesting game theory here. If this game is tied late, a draw kind of kills both teams. Both teams need a win here because you're unlikely to get a win against Croatia or England. 3 is the magic number. So if you're looking at this game late and it's tied, maybe a live over, as both teams should, in theory, be going for it because they have to.
Really great breakdown, Anthony. Thank you so much for the time today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Anthony Dabbundo. Again, check out all the work over there at The Ringer. In terms of the draw price, it's plus 220. But like he said, if these teams are gunning to win, Ghana around plus 135, Panama plus 225, goal total pre-flop sitting at 2.5. Okay, we got to step aside here real quickly. When we come back, we will see if we go final in Portugal, Congo, still tied 1-1 right now. We also have 2 new head coaches in the National Hockey League announced today. We'll break that down, and excited for JVT's thoughts on the WNBA card. We got 6 games coming up today in the W. Stick around. More Money Moves coming up after this.